Welcome. You're here at episode number 10. Can you imagine we made it? 10
10
episodes,
weeks, 10 weeks in a
10
row,
weeks.
guys.
Real coaching. If you're listening live, we would really appreciate it if you would put a comment, tell us where you're listening from. In case you don't know by now, my name is Dr. Ayo. I'm my esteemed colleague,
Yeah, my name is Lewis Thomas, Dr. Thomas.
and we are coaches and we love comics. And we have, over the last 9 weeks, including today, um, today's 10, we've been looking at the hero's journey and Tony Stark's transformation from self-centered billionaire playboy, self-centered, to literally the hero, self-sacrificing, saves everybody by laying down his life, and what kind of lessons we can learn in the coaching space um, from that. So yeah, I've really enjoyed these conversations. Being a bit of a geek. Am I a geek or am I a nerd? What's the
I
what's
think
the difference?
it varies between like UK and US.
All right, okay.
Like it's probably geek in UK and nerd in US.
Okay, fair enough. I mean, we're both wearing glasses, so that kind of qualifies qualifies us.
But yeah, we don't we don't need to identify with such labels.
Fair enough, fair enough. All right, so
Yeah.
we're now taking an overview of, Tony Stark slash Iron Man's appearances in the MCU. So again, there are lots of other places that he appears in terms of comics and cartoons and stuff. We're strictly talking about the MCU. So I think it might be a good idea for us to maybe just do our own quick summary of our impression about Tony Stark, and then we can just break it down, and
Yeah.
go on a journey. So do you want to
I
go first?
thought after we do a quick summary, what might be useful is just to maybe like go through each movie and
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
just
yeah.
if there's any like scenes that we've not talked about or like
Absolutely, yeah.
highlights, just go for that.
Yeah, love it.
Anyway, I'll give you a little summary of like Tony Stark for me. So obviously he starts with being this billionaire who just cares about making money, doesn't really care about uh anything to do with like a greater purpose
Mm,
or impact outside of just, being rich and powerful and smart. And he just gets, his world's rocked by this major life event in him being kidnapped. And that starts this process of change for him,
mm,
which is really interesting to watch from the lens of coaching and see how he's kind of changes identity. Like you said, going towards this self-sacrificing hero
mm,
and all of the challenges that lie in his path, which force him to grow and force him to, develop skills that are needed, like team working with the Avengers and leadership, and it becoming so much more than just him. He's incorporating the whole world in his purpose
yeah.
and willing to lay down his life in the end of the day.
Yeah. Love that. Love that. I mean, I think for me, again, similarly, so I mean, Iron Man as a character, I don't think I was really interested in before the films.
Okay.
Not really. No, I mean, and even like Marvel stuff, wasn't really necessarily interested in before the films. I think they did a great job of humanizing Tony Stark, making him seem like somebody that you didn't really, um, you wouldn't want to spend time with in the beginning films. Very, very self-obsessed, very privileged, very um, driven, I suppose, but in the context of like motivation, it's empty calories. It wasn't anything like, I don't think he was thinking about purpose and stuff at the very beginning. And at the end of it, again, I love the way you phrase it, like that his purpose now encompasses the whole world. He's very cognizant of, Ian, I have the ability and the gifts and the skills to make a difference, and it affects not just the whole world, even like the whole
Mhm.
universe. Like his sacrifice saves half the life, or brings back half the life of the whole universe. So it's a really big transition. But in terms of character, Marvel did very well to make me invested in his story because
Yeah,
as a character before that, I don't think I was interested in him at all.
yeah, yeah. I would agree with that as well because I think when we initially were going to talk about Tony, I was like, oh, he's a well, Iron Man, really.
Yeah, yeah,
It's funny how I say Tony because like he's the person that is
yeah.
the real character. Iron
Yes,
Man is
exactly.
just
Yeah.
kind of the
Yes, exactly.
the suit. But but yeah, seeing it through a transformational coaching point of view,
Yeah,
he's just got so many highlights and
yeah.
so many lessons. Um, so yeah, uh, should we just start at Iron Man 1?
Iron Man 1,
Um,
which to
so
me I think it's in my top five, top six Marvel. Even if it's on today, I'll watch it because I just think not only is it a good film, but like I understand like the difference it made in the cinema space. Because if not for Iron Man 1, the MCU I don't think would be the behemoth it is today and have grossed however many billion, in
mm,
sales. So yeah, in terms of Tony Stark and Iron Man 1, so yeah, it's just like we said. So he's loving life, loving himself. Probably not in that order, the other way, the other way around. And it's interesting how often something like a life-threatening incident, illness or attack or accident and stuff really causes people to reframe, and ask fundamental questions about why am I here, who am I, what do I have to offer, and all that kinds of stuff. And I think that the attack from the Ten Rings really like forced him to think about somebody other than himself.
mhm, mhm. Yeah, it's kind of like beforehand he was detached from all the sort of death and destruction
Yeah.
that his weapons were causing.
Yes.
And this situation put him, well, this event put him in the situation where he was in direct contact with it
Yeah.
and was a victim of it. So he was able to kind of gain that sense of empathy that he didn't have before.
Before. Yeah. Yeah.
And I really liked how it showed that in the relationship between him and Yinsen.
Yeah.
Um, and I said it before, but like it's just still like one of the most powerful things when Yinsen's on his deathbed, um, and he's telling Tony like, "Don't waste your life. Like
Yeah.
you are alive for a reason."
Yeah. Yeah.
Tony was about to give up, when he got kidnapped,
Yeah.
completely sort of like out of his comfort zone. He
Yeah.
had no idea what to do. And it was Yinsen that was the coach that,
Yeah.
empowered him to be like, you're going to survive this.
Yeah.
And
Make
and
your
yeah,
life count for something.
he sacrificed his life so
Yeah.
that Tony could live.
Yeah.
And then we all know what happens from that. And
Yeah. Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
that's amazing.
I mean, I also think that like I'd probably describe Tony as unstable, in Iron Man 1. So if you think about all the stuff that he's had to deal with, so he hasn't processed his parents' death. We know that. He is just going from party to party to party essentially, and because he's brilliant, he even his bad day is probably intellectually head and shoulders above everybody else. He doesn't have to slow down, and then to find out that, like you say, to be punched in the gut about the thing that you're doing is actually taking other lives, and not only that, the fact that um, we find out that Obadiah Stane is the one that ordered the hit. And
Mhm.
again, this was a father figure to like all of this kind of stuff is contributing to. I think it's that instability that is the reason why at the end of the film he's like, "I am Iron Man," because a rational, sensible thinker would have been like, "Yeah." Even people who don't have his genius intellect understand the benefit of an alter ego for the purpose of the people that he loves. But he was like, no, because of his instability and insecurity, no, I need this. I need you to know
Yeah, yeah.
that I'm the hero. Yeah, but yeah, I don't think he was a stable person, and I think he had a lot going on, a lot of reasons
Mm.
to be um, in a tumultuous mental space.
But yeah, it's nice because that humanizes him.
Yeah.
Like even though he's this privileged rich guy, he's got a lot of problems, a lot of
Mm,
really serious, issues going on in his life. And I guess it just shows that having money and privilege isn't
yeah,
everything.
absolutely.
Um, so
I mean, it
he's
can't be because otherwise, millionaires wouldn't kill themselves,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
need
yeah.
priority.
Everybody goes through their own
Yeah,
their own challenges, and
yeah. Life is gonna
all,
life no matter what's in your bank balance. I
all
suppose
of
for
these.
every film, we should probably ask at this stage of Tony Stark's life, would he seek a mindset coach? I think, or a life coach. I think the answer is for one. I think the
Yeah,
answer would be no.
I don't think he's
No,
going to be
in that
seeing the
space.
value of that at this point.
Yeah,
Maybe a little bit later on,
maybe.
maybe
Yeah,
by
absolutely.
Iron Man 3. Um, But yeah, Iron Man 1, he's all about the show and
Yeah,
tell, the
yeah,
external rewards.
yeah,
He's he's developed that internal sense of, okay, I know what I need to do with my life,
yeah,
like help people and stop like making these weapons. I need to protect people.
yeah, yeah,
Um, but his personality is still there. Like
yeah,
he's still, kind of himself. He's still got unresolved issues.
yeah,
Now that he has this sort of like higher purpose goal to work towards,
yeah,
it sets him on this path in which he's automatically gonna end up overcoming those issues and
yeah, yeah,
like
yeah.
doing the work to deal with them. So yeah,
But
Iron Man 2, what
I was
about
gonna
that?
say Iron Man too, because what you said about show off, I think it leads really greatly into Iron Man 2. The first scene that comes to my mind is in the expo. So he's been away for some time. Vanko has got all of these drones and has managed to hack into Rhodey's suit. So
Mm,
Iron Man comes and they're having a conversation, and he's able to wave at the crowd and be having conversations with Rhodey about and then he realizes that Rhodey's suit is locked onto him, and they have to to fly off and stuff. And it made me think like so often in life we offer ourselves an either or look at good or bad, self-sacrificing or self-centered. And I think Tony Stark and Iron Man is on this parallel journey where there are aspects of his personality that he's chipping away and pushing away, and aspects of his personality that he's building. So he is becoming more um, conscious and more and less self-obsessed. But like there are bits of his personality like in Monaco, is it Monaco when he starts to drive the Formula One car, he's still got that kind of immaturity and self-centeredness and stuff. But
mm,
you can see aspects of his personality where he's becoming more mature. And I suppose it's one of the things that people talk about in terms of celebrity. They grow in front of everybody, whereas we have the opportunity to make mistakes that nobody sees. So I
mm,
am not who I am going to be. And there are mistakes I have made and mistakes I'm making today, but nobody's seeing them. And maybe when you see me on a bigger stage, you're like, oh, wow, that guy's got everything together. And you don't realize that now there's been a journey up until now, but we are given the privilege of being a fly on the wall on Tony's life, where he is growing in certain areas for the good and letting go of other areas for the sake of maturity.
yeah, yeah. And I think we're seeing him at the most challenging points in his
Mm,
life. And seeing him grow as a result of that. So in Iron Man 2, he's thinks he's dying because of the problem with the um his core basically. He needs to find the right solution to make it work. And that's what contributes to his behavior in that moment because he thinks he's dying, in terms of taking risks. And it's again it's very humanizing, um because you can see there's a sort of challenge he's going through, um but also there are some points where he's maybe, if he didn't have such a big ego, it might have been easier for him to manage the situation. So in terms of like reaching out for help, from Rhodey and talking about the issue, because he, in terms of as thinking, would he ask for a life coach or mindset coach? He's basically the kind of person who has a problem, of figuring out the core. And because he can't do it, he assumes that no one else can help him do it. And that's his ego. And it's not that this is the thing with coaching as well, right? Like coaching isn't about helping someone, doing something for someone, about solving someone's problem for them. It's about changing their mindset and empowering them to be able to solve the problem themselves. And that's essentially what Nick Fury does, for him in Iron Man 2. So he has the help and guidance through that in order to, get overcome this huge challenge that he's dealing with. Oh, I can't hear you. Please tell me that's not. I can't hear you at the moment.
What about now? Can you hear me?
Yeah, yeah, I can hear you.
I think my battery died on my mic. Yeah, so I was saying I never really thought about um Fury's role in that regard. Like, but yeah, you're right. He was a coach, to Iron Man. And it's interesting in terms of like, so Tony Stark doesn't respect lots of people. And Nick Fury didn't need his respect
Yeah,
to be able to help him. And I think that's it. It's important because that's what's supposed for those of us who are coaches is that it's possible to coach somebody without having like so people who are looking at coaches. Sometimes you're looking for somebody who's done it before. I think that's definitely a a lane to go down, and it's worth um, bearing in mind that a good coach doesn't necessarily need to have walked down the road that you are walking down to be able to help you. So Nick Fury isn't a technological genius, but he was still able to get the best out of
mm,
Tony. And I think it's important for both coaches and people who are looking for coaching to say, okay, what's the most important thing that this person is 10 years ahead of me in the same lane, or are they a good coach? Um, I always liken it to proofreading. So when I've done some proofreading, I don't need to know the subject matter to easily spot the grammatical errors that somebody gives me because I am not in it. I'm not invested in it in terms of like emotionally, and I haven't written it. So it's easy for me to observe. But similarly with coaching, sometimes, like I said, it's of benefit to have somebody who's walked down that road, but it's not. I would say it's not an absolute requirement for the person who.
yeah, yeah, 100%. Like I think sometimes it's actually easier if it's not someone who's done the same thing because it means that they're not going to have the same sort of beliefs about what's possible.
Exactly.
So, Nick Fury doesn't understand the ins and outs of, like chemistry and, all the kind of super smart stuff that Tony does,
Yeah.
but he's just like simplifying it. Like, you have a problem, like go figure it out. You've not tried everything. Nick Fury doesn't know like what he's not tried,
Yeah.
but it's just like a simple prompt
Yeah,
that awakens something in Tony's mind that leads him to finding the solution.
yeah.
So he didn't want life coaching, but he
But it
needed it.
actually helped him. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, because otherwise he would be dead.
yeah, exactly. So yeah, I am on three.
Iron Man 3, yeah.
So this
Oh,
is where Tony starts to have some, I think, a mental incongruence. So his um, bulletproof mindset or belief about himself starts to unpack, and he starts to deal with like anxiety about his ability to protect those who he loves. Up until that point, I don't think he really had a doubt, because of the suits and stuff. But he's now some.
oh, it's Avengers before that, isn't it?
Of course. Oh, sorry.
Yeah,
You're right. Avengers, forgive me. Avengers, the first,
Avengers Assemble.
yeah. So this is the first time that the world of the intergalactic, battle has come to them. It's the first time somebody close to Tony is lost. Coulson gets killed, um, and Tony is having to wrestle with not being the obvious leader
Mm,
in the group. So Cap's there. Cap might not be as smart as him, but Cap has buckets of other character traits that would make
yeah.
it, a leader. And I think Tony wrestles with it.
Mm, mm.
Not
I think
simply,
it's him learning that it doesn't matter if he's the smartest person in the
yeah,
room.
yeah,
That's people aren't automatically gonna listen to
yeah,
him and
exactly.
follow him because of that.
Yeah,
And Cap has those kind of other
yeah,
characteristics that you'd want to follow. So
yeah. I do think part of Tony is self-aware enough to admire Cap in
yeah,
the context of this guy has qualities that I'd love to be the guy that walks into a room and people will just listen to because he has integrity, and he
mm,
has charisma and whatever, and Tony has lots of things, but the way that Cap excels isn't the same way that Tony excels. So yeah, there are times when he is struggling with not being the first fiddle, if you will, and having to learn, like you say, that there's more than one way to skin a cat. In a team, that one has to learn to respect and value the contributions of other people,
mm.
regardless of how much you bring. You
Yeah.
know, um,
And it's him understanding that he can't possibly do everything. He
yeah,
needs the, collaboration of other people. And I think it's also him learning, from another kind of I don't know if Cap's necessarily a coach, but like he teaches him that lesson about, making the sacrifice play. And
yeah,
he opens his mind to sort of considering, oh, maybe I am a little bit selfish and
yeah,
like,
yeah,
egocentric.
yeah,
Maybe I do need to think about
other people.
what the other qualities I'm missing that I need are, because they all have the same goal, at the end of the day,
Yeah,
to save Earth. Um and I feel like the moment that Tony's put in that situation, because he's had that sort of previous discussion with Cap and he's questioned himself,
yeah.
it's just like an automatic reaction. He knows what he needs to
Well,
do.
do you know what? Because I was thinking about this. I think that Tony's decision to take the new into the portal is very. I think it's logic driven, as opposed to at the end of the phase three or whatever. He really understands what he's given up at the end. I don't think he does in this one. Like I think he's,
Mm,
he's smart enough to know it might be a one-way trip or all that kind of stuff. But I think it's logic driven. I am in a flying suit.
yeah,
This nuclear weapon is coming. I need to save people. And we can save people and attack at the same
yeah.
time. Let's do that. And I think it's a slightly different um mental processing that he's going through than when he does a snap at the very me personally.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah,
it's
no, just as you were saying that, I was thinking like, do you think in that moment he thinks I'm gonna die? Or do you think that he
I think
has
he's
a chance of surviving?
I think he in his mind is thinking I could die, but I don't think it's the loudest voice in his head. I think again it's logic because he's so smart, so processing. Because even if you watch it in real time, he doesn't have a lot of time to think. There's a
Mm,
nuclear weapon coming that will kill everybody. I can't stop that. Fine, okay. So there's a portal out of this universe over there, and actually just past it is where the enemy ship is. So if I have the ability in this flying suit that I've created to redirect, let's do that. Uh,
yeah.
you know,
But also, I think that that's just his character to just jump and do things
yes,
very quick before thinking about the consequences, because he just assumes that he's going to be able to think his way out with
yes,
his intelligence.
and that he's the only person that could solve the problem. Because let's think about it. Could Thor have helped? Thor can fly, and Thor's pretty strong. You know, I don't know. I don't know. It makes such
Yeah,
a great
yeah.
story, but could Thor have helped? Could
I guess,
could
yeah, that's a good point. But it was the communication was to Tony
from
from
Nick Fury? Yeah,
Fury.
yeah, yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
So I don't know, maybe it would have been, yeah, I don't know. I can't remember where Thor was
But Thor
in
at
the
the
place.
time they were trying to um he had just used one of those buildings and did a massive lightning what's names strike into the portal.
Oh
Um
yeah.
and he was fighting Loki or something. I can't remember. But I mean they were in the same because he but by the time Tony got the new key was out of the city, he had to fly back into it. So I don't know. I mean, I'm not suggesting that Thor could have. I'm just saying
No,
again.
no, I think it would have taken longer to
Yeah,
communicate that to
probably,
Thor than they had time.
probably. But yeah, I think I
I'm
think
just looking at the time. We should probably
yeah,
move
exactly.
on.
Let's rush through. So Iron Man 3, he's unraveling. He's dealing with a lot of stuff. And I think definitely if he had the self-awareness, he would have been like, I need to talk to somebody, whether that somebody is a therapist or a life coach or a mindset coach, because when you have issues with anxiety and things like that, my experience has been that sometimes it's difficult to trust your own mind, and it's useful to have somebody else to say, okay, well, let me walk through this with you, So I think that he'd be more amenable to it in Iron Man 3.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And I think at one of the end credit scene is him talking to Banner
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And it was like,
about
that kind
like
of
t
doctor.
telling him the story, and Banner's like, I'm not that kind of
Yeah,
doctor.
that's the doctor. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, I feel like he's reached a point where he understands that like
Yeah.
speaking and having that kind of reflective period
Yeah.
is necessary for him. And then that kind of takes us into him developing solutions to prevent those kind of problems from ever happening
Yeah.
again in Age of Ultron.
Yeah.
Uh, so
But again, it's also useful to talk about like you can do the right thing for the wrong reasons and justifying the means because there's a lot of fear and there's a lot of anxiety as the motivation for everything he's doing in Age of Ultron. And ultimately we get Vision, so fine. But I do think that it's important for everybody to understand. And if he was in a mindset coaching um environment, I think why the 5 layers of why and really digging in like why are you wanting to do this? I think would be really important for him because doing something because you're scared of something, I don't think is as good a reason as doing something because you truly believe it's the right thing to do. It might
mm,
not be
mm.
scary, but from a place of fear, I think, I really do think the foundations of the decision do matter.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. Like fear can cloud your judgment,
Yeah.
so it may lead you to do, the right thing, but there may be elements of that decision that
yeah,
you're kind of making the wrong judgments
yeah.
about.
It's not a great
So
compass, really.
yeah, yeah, it's not a great place to be focused on.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. Yeah, and
But
again, there's issues with arrogance and teamwork. So he truly believes that, HR and all this kind of stuff are a waste of time. These he behaves in a way that kind of shows that he doesn't see these other people as peers.
hmm,
So you guys are just gonna slow me down, and or he knows that, well, if I ask you, you're gonna say no, and I don't want to be restricted by you guys, so I'm just gonna do this really dangerous thing. And I'm not gonna ask anybody, and you'd hope that he learned his lesson, but essentially the creation of vision is evidence that he,
yeah.
he still hasn't understood that being the smartest person in the room isn't justification for anything.
Yeah, I think it's tricky for him because he probably feels like he's moving at 100 miles an hour and
Yeah,
everyone else is moving like 1 mile an
yeah,
hour.
yeah,
And like it's quicker for him to do something
yeah,
and mess it up and fix it
yeah,
than
yeah,
it is for, him to sit down and have like a communal discussion
yeah,
with,
yeah, yeah,
with everyone. Um, so him having this purpose of saving the world, you can kind of like empathize with that and see why he does what he does.
yeah,
Um, but yeah, I mean, ultimately he does learn from it after the
yeah.
second one. He's got vision, and we go into the Accords
Yes. Yeah.
in Civil War.
Well,
So
yeah.
we're seeing a very different. We're seeing him acting in a very different way
Yeah. Yeah,
to his
absolutely.
character, which
Yeah,
is directly related to him
exactly.
kind of,
Yes.
reeling from his
Yeah, yeah.
poor decisions
But again, he's
in
on a
Age of
journey. He's on a
Ultron.
journey, and he is, I think, probably overreacting to us
Yeah.
because we're all going to make mistakes. We're all going to do things that we wish we didn't do. We're all going to have cause to ponder and regrets, or temptation to regret. You don't have to regret, but he rather than logically mistakes are inevitable. Let me just make the best decision. He's almost overcompensating. He obviously doesn't trust himself in a way that he did historically. It's almost like that thing when people talk about new ideas and stuff. So incompetence. You don't know what you don't know. Then you learn a bit, and then what's the next stage? Um, conscious incompetence, and you know that you don't know stuff. And then you have the conscious. I don't know the next bit where it's like
Conscious competence is the
yeah,
last one.
exactly, and then mastery.
No, it's a conscious competence and then unconscious competence.
Yeah, so I think this one is a very conscious incompetence. He's overwhelmed by, my goodness, I've made mistakes and
Yeah,
bad
yeah,
things
he is.
and that. So what if I do this and this goes wrong? And he is doubting himself, uh,
Hmm.
which I suppose is a useful thing to go through, but it's not a good place to live. You know, uh,
Yeah.
it's
I think
important.
I think he has to go through that really in order to develop the sort of self-belief in himself again to save the world and do what needs to be done essentially because
Yeah,
he could have easily just kind of ran away scared and just
yeah,
retired at that moment but when he knew that the world needed him,
yeah,
when he knows that he has skills that other people don't,
yeah.
and people's lives are going to be saved by him taking part. He knew what he had to do. So that was him getting dragged into the events in is it Infinity War next. Um,
That he's in. Yes.
so yeah, Infinity War, he's just kind of again got this nice settled life. And he's called like it's all the heroes doing. He's just
Yeah,
called again to
exactly.
get involved And
But it's
he's
almost like, do you remember in there in a lot of hero journeys there's this concept of worthiness. And I think that the interesting thing about this journey into the foray, different to like the initial bit with MCU, is that he's reluctant here,
mm,
whereas he jumps in, previously, probably and bites off more than he could chew. And I think that that's I don't know that it's a universal truth, but sometimes people who want attention and acclaim and all that kind of stuff, you wonder at their reason and rationale for it, and you, they may end up making decisions that like, whereas somebody who does something because it's necessary, but they don't like it. He really doesn't want to lose his life
yeah,
or to he's in the most settled place we've seen him. He's the most happy we've seen him. He seems to have done a lot of internal work, and his decision is measured, but there is that itch there of, what, I can really help. And I think almost like whether it's a Marvel thing or just a hero trope thing, that often the heroes that really say that they are reluctant
mm,
they don't go in big chested and shoulders back saying, I can do this. That's not the guy that normally saves the day. It's normally the other guy, like, okay, fine.
yeah. And I think that makes it more, that makes us root for them more.
Yes, absolutely.
He's got something at stake now. He's got stuff to lose. He's not
Yeah,
trying to show off. He's he's changed from chasing external validation from external things, and he's caring about that kind of inner sense of purpose, and just the the simple things in life.
yeah,
He knows he'd be happy with just spending his life in a nice, happy relationship. He doesn't need to go and have all this like acclaim and external rewards. So so we're rooting for him because we
yeah,
want him to be able to go back,
yeah.
to his simple,
I
happy
I
life.
also think this is the Tony Stark that a lot of people can see themselves in.
Mm.
So that's one of the reasons that we might root for him, because it's like you can see yourself in this guy. You can relate to
He's
this.
not like showing off and stuff.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. But there's also that understanding of the fire that he carries, the weight that's inside, the gravitas that's inside him. So like I'm not sure he would be happy if happy is the right word, because I think that having the gifts that he has an understanding of how much he can do.
Mm.
And there's an episode of House, not to digress. There's a guy who's a genius, like he's literally a genius. He's able to like do um, equations in his mind, like Einstein, but it's lonely, and he basically takes medication to dumb himself down because it's so lonely at his level of intellect that he can't have a normal relationship. So he finds somebody, he marries them, and he dumbs himself down. And House figures out that he's doing it to himself, right? And the guy chooses to continue to dumb himself down because he would rather have the connection with his wife than the ability to do quantum physics in his head, being lonely. And I think Tony's burden, his blessing is his burden, like his ability to give so much and to affect so much with his head, especially knowing what happened with Thanos and stuff like that. I think that if he knew that there was an ability, a time heist that he wasn't involved in, I think it would eat him up because he has the ability to make a change. And I think ultimately, we talked about this before, purpose, I think, is a more important thing to chase off after than happiness.
Mhm, mhm.
If he's settled, but I think that had he known that they did this without him, I think it would have really ate him from the inside.
Yeah, yeah. I think it's definitely like from Iron Man 1,
Yeah.
like purpose is the overriding
Mm.
value in his life that's kind of like guiding him and driving him.
Yeah.
So he was always going to have to get involved when he knew that it was basically his purpose to be involved because he was the only one that could
Yeah. So yeah.
solve the issue.
Mm.
Um, so yeah, and I think that's, I don't know if we said this last week, um, but that's what makes life so much easier in terms of making big decisions in life when you're clear on what your purpose is and what your values, because it means that whichever choices are presented to you,
Yeah.
doing nothing, staying the same, or going on an adventure to save the world,
Yeah.
like you can just choose the option which aligns best with your purpose
Yeah.
without having to go, oh, what if it's wrong? Or like
Yeah.
feel bad if
Yeah.
it doesn't go well. Like you choose that option and you then know whatever happens, I'm good.
Yeah.
If I die, I've died doing
Yes,
what I was
exactly.
meant to do.
Exactly. Exactly.
Or
Absolutely.
if you fail doing what you don't
Yeah,
try, you
exactly.
fail doing
Exactly.
what you should have done.
Absolutely. I mean, I think that's a great place to stop. We've got the time. We've been for
Yeah, sorry, we've gone
for
over
40
time.
minutes in. I mean, I think this for me, this is one. I was having a conversation with somebody at work. You're like, you read comics, and I was like, yeah, because there are so many issues that they deal with, and if you have eyes to see, the the lessons in life that I think you can get from these stories, because they really do deal with some heavy stuff, and I think the storylines
Mhm.
reflect life in a way that, again, if you want to, can make you really think deeply about the character's life or your own life. So
Yeah.
maybe we should have a 1 or 2 minute summary of our impression of Tony and maybe this journey of real coaching, and then we can talk up to the people of what we've got next week.
Yeah. So Tony, he's been on this journey and starts off just being an unlikable, arrogant, privileged billionaire, and is just sent on this journey, and put in positions where he has to overcome lots of challenges, which everyone has to go through in life,
Yeah,
and he just becomes more and more identifiable with that kind of process of change and growth and development, and really, you know, for me, I think it's the whole idea of him figuring out what he's supposed to do with his life that resonates,
yeah,
and just following that path, even though it takes him, to dangerous places, and just being willing to, put his life on the line,
yeah,
because he feels so strongly about that purpose. And I feel like that's something we can all learn from in life. I'm not saying that we're literally, sacrificing our actual lives, but in life there are sacrifices that need to be made for the greater good.
yeah,
And yeah, that's the main message that I feel is reflected in Tony's story.
yeah, yeah. No, I would second that. I think that it's a great example of like the like. I think if we're not careful in society, we can equate hard with bad and easy with good. Whereas I think that if you really, really look at it, a lot of the things that are hard are for your good. And on the other end of it, Tony's life is better for it. There's no two ways around it. Not only is his life better, but he is better. He is a better version of himself, having gone through hard things. And I think that it's a great encouragement to lean into the hard stuff rather than like want to avoid it. So yeah, this has been another wonderful, wonderful, wonderful conversation.
Yeah, thank you, man. Thank
Yeah,
you.
man, appreciate it.
Really, really enjoyed this.
Episode 10. Can you imagine how many months ago we started and we said we want to get to
You said we were going to do it, and
yeah,
here we
and we
are.
did. We did. I'm proud of us. So Yeah, so if you're listening on YouTube, then we would really appreciate it if you could like, if you could share, if you can comment, if you think anybody else would benefit from a conversation like this or something like that, please share it. Please share it. Let's keep the conversation going. Now, next week we are going to do something really special. So we're not actually talking about Tony Stark, Iron Man. We're going to be talking about two other superheroes. One of them is called Dr. Lewis Thomas, and one of them is called Dr. Ayo and Dr. So you're going to get to know a bit more about us, our journeys, and why we've ended up being in the coaching spaces that we are. And there's going to be an opportunity, if you tune in next week, to win some free coaching from both myself and Dr. Lewis. So that's something to tune in for next week. So we'll leave you to have a nice sunny Sunday afternoon. Lewis, another great conversation.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Thank you, everybody.